Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I am joined by a very special guest for this podcast, Kosta. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today, Kosta. We actually met, for a little bit of context, through a platform called School, which you might be familiar with. I don't know exactly when, but we had a few calls and I really like your vibe. You're a very calm, chill dude. You have a nice aesthetic. You have a lot of wisdom. So I'm excited to have you, Costa. Thank you for freeing up the time to be here with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Rus. Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation. And I do remember when we met. It was actually on Twitter, I think. We didn't meet on School. We met on
Oh,
Twitter, tweeting and connecting, and then I think we really connected when we had our first call.
yeah, now I remember actually. It was through Twitter, it was through writing and expressing our thoughts that we first met, and then we started talking about other things and got on like school, and that's probably why it came up to me. Anyway, um, yeah, when I proposed the topic, you said that it could be interesting to talk about mindfulness
Mm,
or psychological flexibility. So I think those two things are very interesting, very relevant, and very important for
mm,
people to do something with, to be aware of, to develop themselves in. So perhaps as like a first question is, why do you think that mindfulness or psychological flexibility, and by the way, do you think those are the two of the same things, or how do you see them?
I think it comes down to how we define them. So maybe I can ask you first, how do you define mindfulness when you think about it?
Mindfulness as in being aware of your mind is probably my definition for it.
Hmm.
Being aware of your thoughts, your emotions.
Hmm. Yes, and that's kind of it's an attention process, I think. So mindfulness is not just it's a skill set. This is how I define it. I learned mindfulness more in depth through studies that I've done on acceptance and commitment therapy and training. It's a behavioral change framework that comes from psychology and it's used in therapy and coaching. And I've been studying this for the last, I think, 5, 6 years or so. And within this framework, I discovered mindfulness in a way that is easier to learn for people compared to having to follow certain doctrines. You know, you don't have to pursue yoga to get into mindfulness. You don't have to do any religious things to get in touch with mindfulness. So, and this is why the the framework of acceptance and commitment therapy and training is so successful because one of the key elements is the way it's teaching people to be mindful. And what this means at the end of the day, it's very close to your definition. Um, so when we are mindful, we can do what matters to us. We can focus on what matters to us and engage fully in conversations or cooking a nice dinner or going out on a walk with friends, having a social event or so. Focusing on those things without being pushed around by our thoughts and our feelings. Because so basically what I was saying, just to get back into the main part of it, the definition of mindfulness is that you are able to engage in what matters to you fully, without your thoughts and your feelings interfering in a way that is not helping you to do what matters to do in your life. So, in essence, mindfulness is about being present and open so that it can help you live the life you want. And that's a different layer of life design, I would say. But mindfulness is just about attention and focusing your attention on where it needs to go for you. It's a personal choice. And then you can just go forward and do the things that matter to you. So that's basically mindfulness. And there's even a different, more practical definition that I actually like to use. So when I think about mindfulness, it's like a skill set for effective living. Yeah. So it's a skill set that involves paying attention with certain qualities, with openness, with curiosity, with flexibility, and with kindness. And those elements, they make it into an attention process that is unlike any other. It's not like paying attention in any old way. It's about paying attention with those kind of qualities. But I want to stop here before I go into defining those qualities then, because I don't want to lose you while I'm kind of talking away, defining something that we want to connect on.
Yeah, that's very a great take. And can you maybe, because in the beginning you mentioned the connection to, what was it, like connection therapy? Can you go a little bit deeper on that? Or
Yes.
attachment therapy, I think.
Yeah, acceptance and commitment therapy.
Or acceptance and commitment therapy, yeah.
Yeah, this is the framework. So if people who are watching this want to look it up, it's called acceptance and commitment therapy or acceptance and commitment training, or short ACT, but it's called ACT. It's not ACT, it's ACT. And that's kind of beautiful because it's a behavioral approach to helping people increasing their potential to create a rich and meaningful life while dealing with the challenges that life brings with it. And ACT is just a reminder, it's about taking actions, right? It's about taking actions, and in the most simple form, when it's about taking actions, you actually only have two kinds of actions. You have actions that take you towards the life you want to live, or you have actions that lead you away from the life you want to live. So it's basically those two kind of actions. And what ACT, the acceptance and commitment therapy framework, does, it's helping people to change course when they were going in a direction that is not the life that they want to live, to steer towards the life they want to live. And for this, mindfulness is a process that gets people into the present, to open up to their thoughts and feelings, to create a distance so that they don't have to react to something in the moment in a way that is not helping them to create the life they want to live. For example, if you are in a conversation and someone says something to you and it triggers something within you, a feeling, a strong kind of sensation, maybe it's anger, and you tend to react to this anger and you want to scream and shout and fight back, well, maybe this might not be the most effective course of action. It might lead to something that you don't want to create for your life. So mindfulness just makes you become aware of the anger, get in touch with your anger, but use it in a more effective way to then decide, what do I want to do now with this anger? What does it tell me about the situation? Do I have to set a boundary? Do I have to walk away? Or do I have to let go of something that is not true about the situation, something that I believe but which is not true? So, but this is then very individual. But to bring it back to mindfulness, the mindfulness part is a very core central part that keeps you in the present moment so that you can open up to whatever is happening in the moment. And when you can do this more often, you have more time to choose an action that takes you one step further and closer to the life you want to live. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I want to ask you as a follow-up question,
Yeah.
what are some ways that you have developed mindfulness for yourself? Because I really see it as a process as well. It's like mindfulness is not something you have or you don't. It's something that you develop and there's kind of levels to it, there's layers to it.
Yeah.
There's like more mindfulness that you start developing with time, with experience, around different environments, around different people. So what are some ways that you have started developing mindfulness for yourself?
So one way, and it's the most sustainable one, is just to check in and pause for a few seconds and just observe what is happening, and just become more of the observer and less of the one who's acting and thinking while this is naturally happening. But the quality, and this is kind of for me the main driver of developing mindfulness, developing your capacity to be in the moment, is to create a distance and be more observant, and on this level just to observe what is going on right now. How does my voice sound when you listen to me? What words do I speak? What is my body telling you about the way that I speak? So observing means to take in information that is present in your here and now experience, whether this be in your outside world or inside. Thoughts and feelings are information that are showing up in your inside world, but you're somewhat standing in the middle, and you kind of observe both worlds. You observe the outside, you observe the inside, and both are kind of guiding you and giving you some sort of inspiration or whatever, and you can decide, what do I want to do next? Where am I? Like, we are now in a conversation, and for me it's important to answer your questions and to do my best to articulate them well so that others can understand them as well. Those kind of things. But it's complex, and you're asking about the ways. One other way is, for me, connection with my body, for example, is, so I do yoga. I do have a practice of movement, but not just yoga, also sports or just physical activities, or creative activities where I use my hands and I cook, for example. I like to cook. And it's also a way to develop mindfulness. You just be in the present with the activity. And any activity is good to train the process of paying attention with openness, with curiosity, with flexibility, with kindness. Any activity, everything you do can be a source, a way to develop mindfulness. So because it's a process, and anything can serve. If you take a bath, if you brush your teeth, if you drink a glass of water, if you write your notes while you're listening to someone, those kind of those kind of things, everything is a source of mindfulness, because it's not about, everyone has this capacity, and at the end of the day, for me, it's just, mindfulness means to be in the present and to be open about what is happening right now. So that's all it is. But to get there, you have to come back to the present. You have to come back from the future. You have to come back from the present. You have to get into your body, which is always in the present moment, and just connect with what's here. So, I think the body is like one container, so to speak, from which to develop mindfulness. Because what I was saying in the beginning is, when you asked me about the ways in which I develop mindfulness, to observe. But how do I observe? I use my physical senses. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I touch, taste, and smell? It's my body helping me to connect with the present moment through observing, through my physical senses. And it's the same with my inner world. I can hear my thoughts, I can feel my feelings. They are happening inside of my body. It's physical sensations. So to bring it down to the most important anchor and the most important way, for me, it goes through the body. The body is always involved, the physical senses are involved, because that's always happening here. And probably the easiest way, if someone is watching this and asking themselves, like, how can I develop this, like right after the call, just take a moment, or just do it right now, like take 5 seconds and focus on your breathing. Just notice the air coming in and out of your nose. And then you can add physical senses, like what does it sound like? Or what can you feel? Like, is there any cold or warm sensation while you breathe in and out? And that's basically the most simplest tool you can take everywhere. You have your body you can take everywhere, and you have your breathing you can take everywhere. And if you have just 5 or 10 seconds, you can just get into the moment and do this. But it's just a proxy, it's not all that is. The most important thing is to take it into every activity, speaking to people, making your bed, I don't know, washing your clothes, making dinner, brushing your hair, washing your face. I don't know, all of these activities, everything is a source of, even the most mundane task can be a way to develop mindfulness.
I feel like you could be a very great person for guided meditations. I don't know if you've tried this before, but while you were saying that, I was kind of like following along,
Mm.
and very relaxing. You have a very relaxing voice as well to listen to.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think you made a great point saying that you can develop mindfulness in everything. And one thing which I think is helpful for people to use is the power of questions. So when you were like demonstrating the example, you were asking questions like, "What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? Is there a cold or warm sensation?" And really, when you ask yourself a question, is when your subconscious is going to start looking for the answer.
Mm.
So if people are struggling perhaps with mindfulness, one thing I would say is ask yourself questions in the moment, about the situation. So like what Kosta said, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I feel? What do I feel is especially a good question.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think you made a really good point there, Costa. And and the second point about the body was also very strong. So the body is in the present moment, it's grounded. The more you can get into your body, the more present you can be. You already kind of mentioned some things that people can do to get more into their body, so the physical activities,
Yes.
activities that demand you to be in the present, like for example cooking or perhaps even writing,
Mm.
uh, stuff like this. What are some ways? Well, you already mentioned those, like yoga and cooking.
Mm.
Um, Perhaps then, now that we discussed mindfulness a little bit, I also noticed you mentioned psychological
Yes.
flexibility when we talked about like what we were going to talk about. What do you define as psychological flexibility? I would love to go deeper into that.
Mm-hmm. Good question. I was thinking about like going back to that one because you mentioned this in the beginning and we started off diving into mindfulness, and now beautiful that we can talk about psychological flexibility because it's connected. So coming back to acceptance and commitment therapy, the skill that ACT is helping people to develop is psychological flexibility. So that's basically the the mechanics or the tools, the skills, the processes that this framework helps you develop. And mindfulness is part of psychological flexibility. So this is one building block of developing psychological flexibility. And there are a few more building blocks, but to keep it simple at this point, because if people are going to research it on them like by themselves later, they will find there are different core processes in psychological flexibility. It's basically 6. But to bring it down to 3 groups, the 3 most important building blocks, it's the ability to be present, to be open, and to do what matters. So that's basically um, the core definition, the easiest one of psychological flexibility. It's the ability to be present, to open up, and to do what matters. And now we talked about mindfulness, and mindfulness is the ability to be present and to be open and to engage in what you do fully through the senses. Engaging means, for example, when you listen to me, for example, right now, you listen to the sound of my voice, you listen to the pitches and the low tones, you listen to the silences in between. You also watch my body moving. So this is engaging. This is how you sinking deep into the moment. And so mindfulness is one building block of psychological flexibility. And the other things that come on top is values and taking action. So to bring this together, let's paint a picture. Yeah, we have discussed the mindfulness block, and now we add values and we add taking action, because then you can create a life of meaning. Yeah, mindfulness alone doesn't do anything. So if you say, I want to be mindful, great, but what do you do with that? Does it improve your relationships because you are more mindful in your conversations? Yes, because you use mindfulness to have better conversations, or you use mindfulness to enjoy the process of cooking more because you're in the moment, or you use mindfulness to write better because you're more in touch with your thoughts and feelings in the moment of writing. So for me, mindfulness is just a helper that needs something on top to make sense, to bring something creative into being or whatever. So those are the blocks, like mindfulness plus values plus action.
What do you mean with values?
Yeah, I wanted to combine the two definitions. So we have mindfulness, values, and actions, and I also said psychological flexibility is the ability to be present and open and do what matters. So we talked about being present and open, but doing what matters we haven't touched yet. And doing what matters means, what is important to you? What matters to you? What are your values? What do you care about? Who do you care about? Who do you want to be? Like, how do you want to behave? Do you care about freedom? Do you care about compassion? Do you care about fitness? Do you care about acceptance? Do you care about spirituality? Right? Those are values. Like, values are just simple words that describe something. And the science, or like, let's say psychology, defines values in different ways, and the way that helps me most to understand values the best, it's kind of, values are your heart's deepest desires for how you want to behave as a human being. So they give yourself kind of a direction. They are like a compass. And you use the compass in situations when you have like a challenge you face and you manage to be mindful in that challenge. Then you have to decide, what do I want to do now? Which direction do I want to go? So do I care about freedom? And then what does this freedom value inform me about my course of action? Do I get out of a relationship because I care about freedom and I don't want to be in a relationship that asks me to be dependent on someone else while I don't want to be? You know, those kind of questions. It's a deeper reflection, and it takes time to uncover values. And the time that is needed is the time and attention that you give it. So for some, it's a lifelong process to discover your values and to be in touch with them in each moment, to know what matters to me right now. Like, for example, if I ask you who's, for example, right now in this moment, what matters to you in this situation where we are in right now, having a conversation, you recording for your podcast?
I would say the ability to be open, to see where the conversation goes. That's what matters to me right now.
Yeah.
And also giving, being appreciative and inquisitive of you as a guest.
Hmm.
So like asking you questions that I think are interesting for you as well as for the people listening. So kind of like valuing your time and valuing the reader's time, I would say,
Hmm.
or the listener's time.
Hmm. Thanks for sharing. And when you share this, could you notice something in your body, for example? Could you feel anything about your values when you speak about them? Where do they sit, like energetically, so to speak? Do they show up somewhere?
Wow, that's a really great question. I felt a little bit of a tingly sensation
Mm-hmm.
in my head actually. I don't know if that's related, but yeah, it could be. That's interesting. So you could say that when you're like in touch with your values, or when you are uh, talking about your true values, is when you energetically start
Mm.
connecting. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes. That's
Wow.
exactly what I'm saying because, and I'm glad to hear that you say that because, getting in touch with your values, it opens up something. It opens up something that you treasure, that is deeply important to you on a deeper level. Um, and only you can say what matters to you. That's the whole point. Like, only you can say what matters to you. And when you do, you get in touch with those deeper values and even needs, needs that we have as human being or you as an individual. Um, and when you do this, there's something happening inside energetically and it shows somewhere in the body. That's my experience. When I do this, something inside my chest happens. There is a warm sensation, something opens up. There is a tingly feeling somewhere in the neck or something massaging my back. I don't know. It just feels something comes alive while I do speak about values or while I listen to someone speaking about their values because it resonates with me when I see someone getting in touch with themselves. I feel I get in touch with myself as well. So it does something energetically in a conversation, I think. And what I heard as well from others who do this kind of therapy work and so on. So this is kind of like I was told when I learned this approach to look for the signs when people talk about values. There is a sense of openness, a sense of freedom that's coming through in sessions or in conversations. There can also be tears and something other emotions, but in any case, it opens up something that needs to flow energetically. And it also starts to move things that are standing in the way. Or it just, there is tension building up. But yeah, this connection with values is very important eventually, when we bring it back to the definition of psychological flexibility and what it helps you do, which is create a life of meaning. When you know what is of meaning to you, when you get in touch with this, then you can let it drive you forward. So because it kind of brings something alive in you, there is motivation. And even getting in touch with your values is a better motivator than just giving you affirmations and saying you can do this. It's also good, but motivation is like, I really deeply care about freedom. I really deeply care about this and that. I really care about being open in conversations. It really means a lot to me, even if it's not easy, but it really means so much to me that I make an effort to do this. It even helps you to face challenges much more steady because you kind of connect with a core inside of you that is giving you some sort of guidance and energy. Even if challenges arise, or it's like driving through a country, part of the country, which is like dark and challenging. There's bad weather, but this is like the light that is guiding me towards like the bad weather. It's like a compass or like a lighthouse, so to speak, something that pulls you or pushes you forward. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of words to describe something that you can only experience for yourself. But I think or at least I hope, speaking about it from an emotional perspective, what it does to you, not just here in your mind, but also in your body. I think it's important because coming back to the body, your values are present every moment. Your goals are not. Your goals are in the future, but your values are here. And values play an important part in designing life and pursuing life, because when you connect with your values right now, you can feel a sense of fulfillment even though you have not accomplished your goals yet. But you know you're doing something of meaning and value, and right now you have access to this sensation of, wow, that's important. I may have not achieved my goal. I may never achieve my goals, but what I do right now is important, and this gives me access to a deeper sense of satisfaction. It's satisfying to do what matters. That's basically what my experience is with myself, but also with others. And it can make you go a long way.
Wow, I think that's a beautiful summary. It's satisfying to do what matters. And I've really felt that in my heart when you said that. Talking about values and values being something that's in the present. This comes back to this is why it connects as well to mindfulness. It's like it's all about embodying that present moment. So now the question becomes, of course, like, because you said that discovering your values is really something that could be like a lifelong process.
It is.
But I do think it can be accelerated if people take the time to establish them. So perhaps, do you have some ways that you have gotten clarity on your values personally? And if so, what would those look like for people who are listening?
So, having conversations with people, I think this is the most effective setting for me to have gotten in touch with my values, because when I speak about situations with people who have the ability to listen well and to guide me through my discovery process, then it opens up something, because you talk about how you feel about the situation, you talk about what you need in the situation, and then you get in touch with what you need and what you value. So it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, needs and values, when it comes to relationships, or when it comes to work, or when it comes, I mean, everything is a relationship, you in relation to the world, right? Everything is a relationship. So, and you need something from the world, you want to give something, you want to get something. It's something that you uncover through making an experience. You have to make an experience to get in touch with what matters to you. Only thinking about it is not enough. You have to also get up and do something. For example, building a business. You have to start and build a business, and to really uncover, is this really my value of, as we so often hear, when you build a business, you pave your way towards freedom, financial freedom, personal freedom. And only when you get in touch with doing activities that involve building a business, you can get in touch with this kind of freedom that is attached to this idea. And then you can sort it out. You can say, well, it's not making me free the way I want to be, basically, because it asks me to do things that I really don't want to do. So it doesn't really make me free. And then you have something uncovered about your values, then this builds the next chapter of your life. It's like, maybe you have to change something about it. And then you go forward and you embody, as you said before, you embody something in a way that you feel this makes sense for you. So I would say, coming back to this, conversations with people, but you can also write about it. You can also write about it with for yourself. You can just reflect on situations and use it as a mindfulness technique even, write about it. Like, what is important for me in this situation? How do I want to behave? I think this is one of the questions that that matter most, I think, because values can also mean money. Values can also mean cars and houses, fine. But I think it's the level of personal values that is more important, like the things you want to stand for, how you want to show up in the world. What you said before, for example, is a personal value, being open in conversations, trying to be balanced in conversations, inclusive, asking questions that are important for me or interesting potentially and for the people who listen. I think this is what you can do because it leads to actions, right? Compared to money as value, it doesn't give you an action. But if you say, I care about open-mindedness, then it gives you some idea and direction of how you can act to do this. What do you need to say in conversations to be open-minded? What do you not need to say in conversations to be open-minded? It gives you more of a direction in terms of action so that you can bring those values to life through your actions. And this is the only way. You can only embody actions through values through taking actions. And actions is the last building block of psychological flexibility. It's like mindfulness, values, and actions. And to use an easy metaphor, values, it's kind of like a direction, like traveling west or east, right? You can always travel east. It will never stop. You can always go on further and further and further. Your values are the same. They are giving you a direction for the rest of your life or the next chapter of your life, and you just keep going. And on this journey, you have goals. You reach certain places, right? Goals are important as well, but your values are your motivations to do that. And values and the direction and the compass alone, they don't give you a journey. They just map it out. But you have to take action to actually move and experience that journey. And this is why taking action is the last building block of psychological flexibility. And it comes through in, being present, open up and do what matters. Your values, and then do it. Embody them, act on them, live them. If you don't live them, I would say you don't really have access to your sense of satisfaction, because satisfaction doesn't arise when you think about what matters. It comes when you do what matters. And that's the most important key that everyone in the world has. You can always, everyone right now, everyone has values. Everyone can live their values regardless of their situation. It doesn't matter. And everyone has the same access to and the same potential for this sensation of doing something that matters. And then, it shows somewhere in the body. It shows there is something energetically that's happening when you do that. And it doesn't take money to do that. It doesn't need to have like a wealthy environment to do that. It only needs awareness and willingness to do what matters, because doing what matters is not always easy. It brings a lot of challenges, actually, and it can bring a lot of discomfort, because you have to very often leave your comfort zone to build a life that's meaningful. And your values are kind of the motivation to make you do that. And mindfulness helps you to weather the storm that may arise. So those are kind of like the tools. It's like a toolbox you take through life on this journey. And values, they set the direction. Action give life meaning. They make it real. And mindfulness is a cool core capacity that helps you to be in the moment so that you can take choices that actually help you live your values better, more effectively.
Wow, man. It's such a great just listening to you talk about these topics. I'm sure that I'm not the only one who's thinking that. Probably the listener is as well, like just sat at the edge of their seat hearing you talk about these topics, man. So I think, drifting away from the topic of values, because I think it's an important topic for sure. Um, and I'm definitely gonna take a moment, even after the podcast, to really do a double think about it. Like, how have I been acting my values? What potentially do I need to clarify about my values? Those are important questions to ask yourself from time to time. It's honestly been quite a little bit of time since I have done that.
Mm.
Um, but I also feel that when you do that, it gives you such a feeling of strength and power. Um, so you really feel it energetically. That's exactly what you're saying.
Mm.
So it's a very strong exercise for people to do from time to time, reflecting on your values, seeing how you embody them, whether you actually act on them. That's powerful. Um,
Yeah, and you can actually, there are different tools you can use to journal, I would say. So I have two actually. So one would be to make it more specific to situations, right? To just take one situation in your life and write about it and see what you discover about your values writing about the situation. And there are different elements to the situation. You have the level of observation. Yeah, it's just what you can observe when you, for example, want to write about a difficult conversation that you had. You just write the facts. What could someone observe who would be watching this movie of my conversation from the outside? This happened. This was said. This was. This is where the conversation took place. Like just the facts of this, and then there's the level of feelings about this situation because you feel something about this. You have a different interpretation than someone else. Maybe you feel happy about the conversation or you feel sad about the conversation, and it goes deeper into reflection of how do you feel about it and what does it tell you about what is important for you. You feel sad because someone crossed your boundaries and you weren't able to maybe say assert yourself and say, well, thanks for your advice, but actually that's my responsibility. Those kind of things you wished you would have said. It's kind of like it just goes off into a deeper, you go deeper into an area where you maybe need guidance because you need someone to guide you through such process, but writing can do so much. You can still get in touch with what's there, what comes up as in terms of thoughts, and you just write it down. And I think simple questions in terms of like, what do I need? What do I need to change about this situation, and why is this important to me? And how do I want to change my behavior? When you say, I always do this, I never speak up, and it really makes me angry at this point because I want to speak up, I want to set a boundary, and this brings you in touch with your values of assertiveness. And then okay, it's hard for me to assert myself, so maybe I should be looking for a course that helps me to train skills to assert myself. What can I say? To just have role plays, to develop actions that help you live this value of being assertive in your life and setting boundaries better. And I think it's important for many people because many people are, I think, or like there are probably a lot of people who struggle with perfectionism or people pleasing, and assertiveness, for example, is a communication skill that really makes life better for people in this situation. So that's like one thing, to make it specific to a situation, to not let it just hover on a very general abstract level, but to bring it down to real life situations. And when you discover you can't go further, I think there's always options to talk to friends and to maybe see, does anyone know and want to talk about this situation, and just listen, and just listen and help me discover what's important for me. So that's one thing. And the other exercise could be in the evenings just to look back on the day and see what things did I do, what actions did I do. And some actions take you towards the life you want to live. Like I read a page in a book that is interesting to me. So that is a towards move. It leads you towards a life you want to live because you want to read the book, you want to get the information or the inspiration that's important for you. And then you can ask yourself, oh, this action is helpful for my life. What value was I living? And then it's good to maybe just look up online lists of values. I think there are lists online, like just common values, simple words. Yeah. So that's kind of something. I think the second one is a bit easier than the first one, because for the first one you have to allow yourself to feel what you feel. And I think not everyone is comfortable with feeling what they feel. But for the first process, this would be necessary to uncover what you really need and what is truly important for you. But if you avoid your feelings, if you avoid anger, if you avoid fear, then it's kind of difficult to write about feelings when you actually don't want to get in touch with your feelings. So it could be blocking your reflection. But the second one I think is more accessible if you use a list and you just take note of your actions and see what values was I living. Yeah.
Would you mind perhaps sharing one or two values that you have recently perhaps been thinking of, or that you personally have?
Yes. So a value that shows up in almost all areas of my life. Mindfulness, for example, is not just a skill set, is a value as well, right? So it's a value as well. I do want to be present. I do want to be open in the moment. I do want to be curious. I want to be kind in those moments. I want to look at things from a perspective of that's very interesting. What can I discover here? And to even go deeper with my appreciation of what I experience in the moments, even if they maybe are not so pleasant. But it's a perspective, a change in perspective that's happening, which is why this value of mindfulness is important for me. Another value is connection. So, and connection has two sides. It's to be present with people, to be really present with people. Again, being in the moment. You see, it's all connected. It's kind of like sometimes difficult to differentiate, but it's still, this is now connected to people. But people, it's just one side of the coin. The other side is like connect to the things that I do. If I'm not with anyone right now, if I'm just with myself, I still want to connect with myself. I want to connect with my activities. I want to connect with the food that I cook. I want to connect with my body when I'm doing like exercises. I want to connect with the plants that I'm taking care of at home. I just want to see, what are you up to? what do you need? What are you doing? Like just observe and just take in the information. So those are, I would say, values that I've discovered and rediscovered recently, but on a deeper level, because they show up in so many areas of life, which makes them core values. Some values you have in some areas of life, but not in others, and other values maybe have in all areas of life. And I would say mindfulness and connection, those are two values that show up in all areas of life, because they are, for me, they are on a different level, and they make, they're like glue. It's like magic glue. They hold everything together, and without them, all the other values don't really matter. If there's no mindfulness, if there's no connection, the other values don't really matter. And that's just a personal reflection for me. But I think others have other values. But let's look at your values, like you described values that you have when you do podcasts. Being open-mindedness and looking for questions that are in balance. Would you say, when we speak about values, would you say this is just a value that you have, you as a host of your podcast, or would you say those values also show up in other areas of your life?
I have the value of openness in other areas of life as well. So I try to be open to suggestions, to people's advice, and kind of balance it between being very stubborn on my own trajectory, as well as being open to a potential recommendation or a potential second option. So for me, openness is something that shows up in other areas of life. Constantly being open to new ways of, like, you could say, doing things, seeing the world. Another one for me I wrote down was love. So I think one value which I have is just being loving and grateful of not just life but the people around. I think it's very important to express that in the form of attention, so giving people your attention, in the form of gestures, in the form of, like, yeah, just acting on love. I think is also a thing that I value personally.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I didn't think about it, but on a deeper level, of course. Yeah.
That's awesome. And another one I wrote down is health, for example. So I think that part of a foundation of life is really just health. So whenever I try to make a decision, I look from the perspective of health as well. Like going to the gym and sleeping on time, stuff like this. Something which is present in my actions. And I guess mindfulness is something which I also think is very important, more particularly just trying as much as possible to be to really be aware of what is happening. And yeah, constantly, no, not constantly, but taking moments every day to try and bring yourself into the present moment. Whether that's through exercise, through meditation, through breath work, through, I don't know, like yoga or cooking, what you said. I think including some of those activities in your day is a very beneficial habit. So for me, it's perhaps walking that really grounds me in a sense, because I really feel that it does give clarity. So yeah, those are just some of the things that are really useful for me personally.
Thanks for sharing. I think you described it beautifully, and it's beautiful to hear it from someone who has similar perspectives but also different ones. So I think what you said before, open-mindedness, to be open to see the world differently, I think it comes when you listen to people and hear the same thing in different words. It opens up a different layer of understanding. So thanks for sharing. And you said something interesting about values, being open-mindedness and being open-minded, and while also balancing this with being stubborn, wanting to do things on your own and seeing things. Did I understand you correctly that this kind of like, is there a tension in those values? Like wanting to do things which you describe as stubborn and open-mindedness, are those two values, or is it different? Are those different things then?
That's a good question. I think those two can be combined. So there's openness to suggestion, but there is like stubbornness in other things. So for example, if someone is offering you a different take on a situation that you're approaching, the value of openness is that I am open to like listening to it. For sure, tell me about it. I'm open to hearing about it. But then stubbornness in the final decision to actually take on the advice or not. So being open doesn't mean just changing things at the twist of a finger. It means like being open to your mind being challenged, but then sometimes just being stubborn and not acting on that. Does it make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, even more now because you explained that, and I think it's good what you described. Good to hear for me, but I think also for everyone else. Like here again and again, being open doesn't mean you take on everything that is being said. You're not a pushover. You're not controlled by other people's ideas. You just take them on in a way that you allow yourself to listen to them, and then you make a decision, is this idea helpful or not? And if it's not, you leave it. If it is, you take it and you go with it. And that's exactly what part of the mindfulness training, as I learned it and as it's done within this ACT framework, it's the same. When you listen to your thoughts, for example, when you listen to your thoughts about a situation, it's the same. Is your mind is kind of like this person giving you all sorts of suggestions, good ones and not so good ones, and most of them are not so good because the mind is tends to be kind of rather this kind of sometimes, I don't know, it's just human nature. It sees the way in a specific way because that's what it needs to do, like the mind to survive basically. And but it's the same process. So what you described as mindfulness and like taking on, but also making a conscious decision in relation to others, it's the same with yourself. You don't have to believe everything that you are thinking, right? It's just a thought. It can come in. If it's helpful, you're using it. If it's not helpful, it's just a cloud in the sky and it will go away eventually. And you just turn your attention towards something else. You are not, there's this mind and there's you. So there's always this capacity of you being able to observe your thinking, your mindset, which is why being open-minded, I think, makes so much sense because you just open up to your own mind as well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a lot of, definitions, and I just realized while we talk, there's so much. It's like frameworks upon frameworks and this building block and this building block. It's kind of like I'm wondering what people think when they hear it, if they got the picture, because it's difficult sometimes to arrange it in a way that makes sense for everyone. But I want to ask you, like, what do you see right now, now that we maybe make a mini synthesis of this conversation that we have, just to see where we are, what is the landscape that we painted in terms of, mindfulness and the tools and the values and all of that. Like, how does it look for you, just to bring it to a point of, aligning it in a way that it can be of meaning going forward for others or for us, even for us now that we are talking about it?
That's a very, very good question. So I was thinking about that already whilst you were saying that, as like a kind of wrap up, like what can we recommend for people to take away from this conversation? I think the first thing which became apparent to me is definitely reflect on the things you value, whether that's through conversations with people or with friends, or whether that's through reflection and using a list online to look up some values, then taking a look at what of these values resonate with you. I think that's like a first thing for people who are listening to take action on. And I think partly a value is like taking action as well. So just taking action when you're listening to this podcast is also something that shows you're committed to improving. Um, so I think that's the first thing. Second thing is perhaps integrating some moments of mindfulness into your day in any way, shape, or form. This can be one of your favorite activities related to exercise, one of your favorite activities related to studying or learning or listening to music. Just kind of like trying to integrate moments of intentional presence every day. That's possibly a good one to uh, add for people. Um, yeah, I think another thing is for people to really be open. So maybe that's something which I guess something you could value, but also something which is like in general just a beneficial trait to have. Being open to what's mentioned here in the podcast, being open to a new perspective on something. Like it's in general just beneficial to have that. Just having that psychological flexibility, I guess you could say, is the main thing that people can take away. Is like really get clear on your values, or at least reflect on your values. You don't have to like define them and then it's full stop. Just try and reflect on what it is you value. See how that's present in your actions. See if you can be a little bit more open in day-to-day life, and integrate some moments of mindfulness into your day, because I think that's really going to serve you well. And I would like to ask you before we wrap this up, Kosta, would you add anything to that, to the list of things for people that are listening to act on?
I think you brought it down to a very practical level. And I thank you for doing this because it gave me a sense of relief that what I was explaining actually made sense. And it kind of, you brought it into like an aligned string of practical actions people can take away. I would add one thing in terms of values. They are freely chosen. You choose them. No one tells you what you have to value. Even if you live in a society that tells you what you have to value, but still at the end of the day you choose them. That's one point. And they are not rules, right? You don't have to. You don't have to embody love. You don't have to embody open-mindedness. You don't have to do anything. You choose to because it matters to you. Right? It becomes and I really desire this. I really desire this because it means so much. If it's an I have to, then it's probably not a value, it's a rule. Then you can look at it and maybe cross it off your list and reconnect with something that is more on the I really want to side, you know. That's important. And they're not set in stone, I would say. Last point on the values. It's like looking at a dice, you know, when you roll dices, you know, they have 6 sides. And when you look at a dice, you never see all sides. So in some situations, this means that some values are more in the background and some are more in the foreground. And then you turn the value because the situation changes, and then others come to the forefront. And then others go more into the back. So it's kind of like a moving piece. You don't live all your values at the same time all at once. Like one by one, maybe 2 for situations that you are in right now. You know, always right now. And there's not like, even if you find a list with 60 values and you pick 10, try to bring it down to 3 for a situation right now. I was wondering, I can send you a checklist that is guiding people through connecting and identifying their values. It's an easy 1-pager, 2-pager. I don't know if you can link it under the podcast, but I think this is something that could be helpful in terms of journaling because it gives you simple instructions and it gives you a simple list to start with, and then you just go further. So, yeah.
Yes, I would love that. I think that's something I would personally use as well, but I would definitely link it in the podcast
Great.
episode as well for people if they want to
Great.
take a
Then
listen.
I think that's a good thing, because the values part is really tricky. It can be really difficult to do. Yeah. And lastly, just one thing, because while I was listening to you summarizing, you brought up a few terms that could be misunderstood. Not that this was an intention or unintentionally, but the thing is, when people think about mindfulness, sometimes they think about breath work and meditation and sitting cross-legged on the floor and just observing your thoughts. I mean, it's more like mindfulness is more like in the moment kind of thing. It's super simple, It's like if people are still listening right now, like just listen to the sound of my voice for a moment. Just listen to the sound. That's it. That's being mindful about me speaking to you right now. That's all it is. Nothing else. You don't have to focus on your breathing. You don't have to meditate. You just focus on the sound of my voice. One aspect of your here and now experience that is meaningful for you. That's all it is. And that's all mindfulness is, and even meditation. You don't just close your eyes and focus, because it's also an attention process. But you don't have to close your eyes to be mindful or to meditate. Right now we are meditating, we are talking to one another, and we are focusing on one another. So that's also a form of meditation, in my opinion, anyway. So I just wanted to give some food for thought on this point, just to not leave it untouched, that mindfulness can be a dodgy word because it's been used so much and misunderstood so much. We could have said this in the beginning. It's not about, meditation. It's much more simple, much more real, much more in the moment. Anything you do, anything. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you for adding
added a
on
lot
to
of
that.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Costa, I really want to thank you for your presence today. I think you're a very interesting individual to listen to. And if I wouldn't be careful, it would probably turn up into a Costa podcast and Gus listening. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I really thank you so much, Costa, for being here today with me talking about these topics. I am sure that the people listening enjoyed it very much. I'll make sure to include the list. If you can send it over, then people can use that for like reflecting on some of their values. Yeah, with that said, listener, thank you for listening. I'll put some of Kosta's socials in the description as well, so you can check out his work and see what he's doing online. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this podcast today, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.